What are we starting with this week, guys?
We
review.
Wrong.
Spotify.
Patreon comment.
Spotify.
That's right.
Yes!
Spotify. Spotify Person of the Month. Ooh.
Spotify Person of the Month.
Spotify Follower of the Month. So, Just Krabby has followed us on Spotify, and they've tweeted out the little. If you screenshot you following us on Spotify and tweet it out, you can be the Spotify Person of the Month. So what they've done is they've tweeted that out. They've said, "Absolutely love the podcast. It's definitely an it just came out. Better watch it now thing for me.
Yes.
Love from America."
Ooh.
Thank you very much, Krabby.
Thank you,
to
Just
the
Krabby.
country of America.
Which Just
Sorry.
Krabby is the president.
And Just Krabby isn't alone. There are 11,200 of our followers on Spotify.
Just Krabby has so many friends.
So many. That is amazing. I think we should try and get it up to. Why don't we try and get it up to like 15K? Is that too much? Let's try and get it up to 15K. Let's get it up to 15K or else. But seriously, if you take a screenshot of you following us on Spotify and tweet it out to us, you can be spoken about in the at the start of a SCI GUYS episode. You can be a Spotify Person of the Month. How cool is that? Follow us on Spotify.
That's the message.
But before we start the show, we do have something else we want to mention because we've got a big, huge, giant, massive giveaway going on right now, don't we?
Do we?
We do.
We should mention it.
We should mention it more often, shouldn't we?
We should.
So to enter this giveaway and to win many, many things, and what things can they win, guys? What can they
SCI
win?
GUYS signed calendar. SCI GUYS little
Exciting
note
things.
card from us.
Yes.
Taste-changing pills.
They can get the taste-changing pills.
Mars
They can get some
soil.
Martian soil. That's right. And also
Ooh.
you can get an exclusive piece of SCI GUYS merch that will only be available to you. It's totally exclusive.
Yeah.
Never been given to anyone else. You'll be the sole owner of that merch.
Yeah.
And I bet you're asking yourself, what can I do to enter this competition and win all these amazing, amazing prizes? Well, I'll tell you what you can do to enter this competition and win all these amazing, amazing prizes. You need to answer one question in the comments of this video on YouTube. All you need to do is answer the question, what country do you live in? And if you want, let us know what the weirdest law in that country is.
And like
Some
and
pretty
subscribe
weird laws
as
out
well.
there.
Oh yeah, like and subscribe. You got to do 3 things. Answer the question.
All you have
like,
to do is
and
do
subscribe.
one thing. And also 2 or more
And
things.
also 2 more things.
Should we start the show?
Let's start the show.
Let's start this show.
Hello and welcome to the SCI GUYS, the show where we talk about the crazy, weird, and wonderful stories from the science world. I'm Corey, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Jamp, and Luke Cutforth, and special guest, Eleanor Neale. Yay!
We have had
Welcome.
a lot of requests to have you on, Eleanor. I don't know if I told you that, but we have had quite a lot of requests. Yes, we have.
Many, many requests.
wow.
For this
Aw.
exact topic as well, actually.
Well, what are we learning about?
Oh, what are we learning
You
about?
gotta tell us
I
first.
haven't told you yet. This week, we're talking about crime and punishment.
Oh.
Dun,
My
dun,
Oh,
dun.
dear.
expertise.
No, so we're going to be talking about forensic science today. Do you guys know anything about forensic science? Anyone at all?
It exists.
That is factual.
Yeah.
Eleanor, you might know a little something about forensic science.
I mean, I probably should, but I only know the information that I find through specific cases. So I've got really good knowledge on specific parts of forensic science, and then other parts. You could ask me how to take a fingerprint, and I'm like, could dust it. I don't know.
To be fair,
Bit of flour.
as you said that, I just realized. I mean, I don't know how to take a fingerprint. I genuinely, in all of
Yeah.
this, all the stuff I looked up, didn't consider it.
Put some dust on it and then just some sellotape over the top.
Sellotape it,
Peel it
yeah.
off.
You've watched Ant-Man, haven't you?
I have watched that, man.
Everything I know about forensic science, I know from Dexter.
Yeah.
And that's specifically about foiling forensic science. So even then, not
That's
helpful.
very worrying. No, so okay. Does anyone know what forensic science is? Do you know, like, could you give me a definition of what it is?
The science of solving crime.
Not
Gathering evidence? I don't know.
you had it, and you kind of wandered off the path. You're not too far off. So forensic science is just what we call science that's applied in criminal or civil law. Did I say criminal right? I don't know. I said it too fast.
think you did, yeah.
I said it. Okay, good. So it's essentially just using science to illuminate details of potential criminal offenses or civil wrongs. Because those are different things, by the way. I don't know if you guys know this, but a civil wrong is not the same as a criminal offense.
Oh,
Do you know what the difference is?
no.
No?
No.
So a criminal offense is, okay, so usually a criminal offense is the state will file a case against you. So if you, I don't know, decide to do a murder or perhaps do a steal.
If you decide to do a murder.
Yeah, you know, if you're feeling one day, like you just do one, or you steal, or
Can't fight the urge today. I'm just gonna do it.
you know, if that takes your fancy, then the state will the state will prosecute on it. Prosecute you on that. But if it's like a civil dispute, you know, if a person files the case against you and not the country, that's then a civil wrong. So like slander, defamation, those are civil wrongs. Or breach of contract. If you've signed a contract with someone and then you break that contract, you won't be charged criminally. You'll be charged for a civil wrong. Does that make sense? Slightly different things.
Right.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I never knew there was a distinction between those two things. Is breaking a contract explicitly illegal?
This is the thing. It's very difficult. I don't think breaking a contract is illegal. Like I don't think you could be charged criminally for it unless there's a criminal action in breaking the contract. You know what I mean?
Right.
So usually with civil cases, it's settled with money. It's like you give me money because you broke contract. Or something.
Right. The type of stuff you'd see on Judge Judy.
Yeah. Those are civil.
I just have to bring it back to the pop culture.
Yeah, or Judge Rinder, or any of those things.
Yeah.
Those are civil disputes. So those are civil disputes. But you can be charged.
Gotcha.
You could be tried for both. So if you were to steal something,
Right.
you could be charged criminally for stealing, and also you could be charged civil. Like you could have a civil suit because you took something from
you
someone.
stole from.
Yeah.
Double whammy.
Yeah. And you know what crimes are, like drunk driving, or I don't know. I was gonna make a fashion joke, realized I know nothing about fashion, and blanked for a second. Let's move on. Forensic science, back to that. It's more than what you might think. It's not just looking for fingerprints or DNA. It's every single aspect of science that's applied to these kinds of legal investigations.
Right.
Yeah.
So like timing how long a body has been dead.
Yeah. Well, not. Yeah. I mean, I'm picturing sitting with a stopwatch and
No. Measuring its temperature, looking at.
Was anyone around with a
seriously.
stopwatch when this man died?
Say ah.
Say no.
That's the issue with that. They often do not stop saying ah. Their mouths are hanging open like that. Never mind. Let's move on.
Not very cooperative either.
That's horrible.
Oh no.
Dear me. Okay, so forensic science. It's obviously it's old, very old. It's older than the police even. I don't know if you guys know that. Do you guys?
Because you'd have private investigators.
You could have, yeah. And like the thing is that police aren't actually as old as you think. However old you think police are, they're probably younger than that. Like
20.
20?
20.
I think you've got to be older than 20 to be a police officer. To be perfectly honest,
Yeah,
that
probably.
rigorous 6 weeks of training is.
Oh no.
So okay, no. Seriously though, forensic science and all of that stuff is older than even, I guess, this country. I think I don't know how old this country is. Shouldn't have said that. It dates back to like ancient Greece, ancient China, the Aztecs, and ancient Egypt
It's like
as
the
well.
dinosaurs doing all their forensic
With a
work.
little magnifying glass on a T-Rex. Well, T-Rex can't reach.
It can't reach it. Yeah, no. I don't think any dinosaurs could use a magnifying glass. You know, it's a real pain. But
You have to be on a monocle.
So, in the 7th century, using right. Take a guess. For what reason were sort of the use of fingerprints as identification first? Why were fingerprints first used as identification? In what context? Yes, Luke.
If anyone else wants to guess, then they can. But I have a guess.
Luke winning a race. If anyone else wants to win this race, please just step ahead of me. But I can
I've
win.
crossed the line, but if anyone else wants to cross
If
it before me, it's fine.
Was it for signing legal documents?
Yeah. So you're spot on. I think it was. So the evidence I've got here is in ancient China. That's when they've dated it back to. People using fingerprints to say this is a person that has signed this contract.
Ah.
Yeah, which is very cool. And they've used it elsewhere as well. In fact, I think how old? Full of questions today, but well, they're easy ones. No, they're not easy ones. How old is the term forensic, roughly? What century was it invented in? What century did it go into the dictionary?
When was the dictionary made? Dictionary.
That's a better question.
Maybe it's
That's a
older
better
than
question.
dictionary, Corey. You don't even know how old this country is. A great point, Eleanor. Thank you for dethroning Corey.
I actually don't know how old the dictionary is. I'll tell you what, it's older than it's more than 400 years. It's
1700.
Well, it's
No, wait, that's 300. 1600.
sorry, it's older than 362 years old. I think my maths is right. That was so in 1659. The word forensic was added to the Merriam-Webster dictionary. So I assume it's older. The dictionary is older than that. I don't know.
That's the first edition.
No, because
My brain is so fried.
if it was added to the dictionary, then it can't be the first edition. Has to at least be the second.
Well, you added things in the first edition. You just added everything.
Added every word.
But okay,
That's
right.
true.
Slight tangent, right? But whose job was it to add words to the dictionary? Because like, how do you do that? Do you just sit there and think of them and like
You just go around to be like,
aardvark,
what words do you know?
animal?
Yeah.
Or do you have to ask people?
You'd be like, what words do you know?
Like
What
Well,
do you mean?
you know.
What words do you know?
like
How
a
long
word
have you got in this interview process?
like a word census. They send it
Yeah.
out to everyone and just write down all the words.
You give us
know.
a word, we'll add it. There weren't that many people back then, so it was probably possible.
I don't know enough about dictionary making to dispute you on that, so I guess I have to assume they just ask people.
Someone
what words they
listening is
knew.
probably a dictionary expert and can tell us. Please tell us.
Please. We're dying to know. No, so forensic is an old word. So the idea of forensic science has been around for quite a long time. However, forensic science as the sort of dedicated labs working with the police like consistently, that being a kind of career, that wasn't really a thing before, you know? Because if you think about it, there wasn't really much science to go on. Like we've got fingerprints now. We've always had fingerprints, but we use them in forensic
Science was invented, and then at birth, everyone was imprinted with a fingerprint.
yeah, it's like the Bill Gates of the 1600s, you know, installed fingerprints in everyone so that he could track them. Do you guys don't know this? Is basic science. No, obviously we started using fingerprints and DNA and other forms of and like sort of more advanced science, which has given us a better picture of how to put together what happened during a crime. So obviously way back then it was mostly just people being like, I do science, looks like that's going on. But there wasn't.
It was loads of like rich old men, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean that's who scientists were. You
Yeah.
had some others dotted about there, but certainly rich old men were the only
I
ones
reckon they
with
were
the
the
time
ones
to
doing
do
the
it.
crimes as well. And people being like, oh, I know who did it.
Different kinds of
Not me.
different kinds of crimes, though. You know? But to be fair, right, this is the thing that doesn't bother me, right? Gosh, I've made myself sound awful again. Nowadays, it's very, very hard to get away with crimes, whereas a long time ago, it was very easy. Nobody knew what DNA was. They would just clean up blood if it was at the scene of a crime.
Yeah.
So it was so long as no one saw you do a crime, you could get away with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like this quote in a BBC show called Life on Mars about this like modern day policeman who gets sent back to the 70s because he's in a coma. Don't worry, just watch it if you're interested.
Well, you just spoiled the ending, mate.
Did I? Oh no! Anyway, that's not important. So it came out in the early 2000s. You've had your chance. So he's back in the 70s, and he goes like, "Oh well, have you dusted the body for prints?" And then all these 70s policemen are like, "You can't get prints off a body. Everyone knows that." And then like the idea that that's such a modern invention that you can get prints off of something so like getting prints off of glass is a very different thing to getting prints off of a body, which is itself like a biological surface. So it's really interesting that like the advances so recently.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this, it's really the past sort of couples in the late 19th century. That's when sort of the forensics as we know now started to really take off. And the late 19th century is the 1800s for anyone that struggles with centuries. So yeah, it was like the late 1800s is when we really started to make dedicated labs for forensic science and really get properly into it. And yeah, I mean, the way that this kind of came about was quite interesting in that initially it was scientists kind of scientists doing the job sort of separate from police. And then over time, they kind of melded into one. And nowadays, a lot of people working with forensic science work quite closely with the police or under sort of the jurisdiction of the police, if that makes sense. So you've got someone that works for the police doing forensic science rather than sort of outsourcing it to a forensic science lab. And the way that we think that sort of happened, there was lots of different avenues, but it was initially sort of fingerprinting that brought that in, because what would happen was there were sort of people that worked with the police that just did fingerprinting for identification purposes. So they fingerprinted criminals, and obviously when they started using fingerprints to identify people, at a crime scene, essentially, the people that worked with that within the police were the ones they went to. They said, okay, these people are obviously very good at reading fingerprints, I guess. So let's shove the work on them. And so that started to bring forensic science under the jurisdiction of the police. And I want to talk to you a little bit about fingerprints. Do you guys know maybe who? And Luke and Jamp, I know that you know who this person is, not personally, but do you guys maybe know who was one of the sort of front runners of using fingerprints for classifying criminals?
Sherlock Holmes.
Fingerprints.
Mr. Fingerprint. I said Sherlock Holmes.
No, Sherlock
Bad
Holmes. Sherlock Holmes was based off of one of the very early, sort of front runners of forensic science. But no, it was Sir Francis Galton. Do you guys know who Sir Francis Galton was?
We've definitely talked about this person.
We've definitely talked about Sir. Do we like Sir Francis Galton, or do we not like?
No.
No. Why do we not like him?
Because he's a man.
That's a good point.
I don't know, because you're hinting heavily that I shouldn't like him.
I wanted to trip you up. No, Sir Francis Galton is not only the father of fingerprint identification as we know it today, but also a big old eugenicist. He loved eugenics.
That's it. Yeah, there we go.
Eugenics daddy. So the way that this went down was he started. Oh my God. He started with sort of fingerprinting people, and he was like using sort of forensic science to analyze criminals sort of after the fact. And then he got into his head sort of, you see, but there are certain traits that tell you if someone is going to be a criminal.
Oh dear.
For example, being a black perhaps, or having a skull shape that is, quite popular in the African population. These things are what
By
make
chance.
Oh.
Yeah. He went fully off the rails and right down the eugenics road, which was what it says here, nose size, skull shape, or skin tone. This could indicate whether someone was a
Wait, is this the guy who had like a chart that got distributed around maybe at least Britain, maybe Europe, that was like hair color, and it was like classifying which types of hair color were like based on which traits, and it was basically just a racist hair chart?
Maybe. To be honest, it could have been. That's fully within his wheelhouse.
So UCL, some of the measuring devices used by Galton were hair spanners, craniometers to measure the size of the cranium, and hair and eye color reference samples. And it's really famous. Like UCL still has it. It's this like just like locks of hair in a box, almost like a big like smoking tin, but really big, like a pencil case.
Where do they have this?
And the ones at the bottom, not only is it like colored from like blonde down to brown, it also has like specifically like curled hair and
Okay.
Yeah.
Two
chart.
things, Luke. One, where do UCL have this? Because I was there for every day for 3 years, and I do not remember seeing this.
I don't think they're very proud of it.
Okay,
No.
good, because they're very proud. They're very proud of Jeremy Bentham's head. They love drawing that one out. But no.
But didn't Galton teach at UCL? I think.
Oh,
not recently.
No.
They have a head.
Yeah. So Jeremy Bentham he got himself stuffed when he died, and they had to replace his head with a wax head because it got too creepy. But no, they bring out the head every now and then.
Don't say.
Just for assemblies.
I don't know if you mentioned this, Corey, but Galton coined the term eugenics.
Yeah. He's the eugenics.
So he's
daddy.
like the guy. Oh,
Yeah.
you said he's eugenics daddy.
Oh, so
okay,
when
right.
you say eugenics daddy, you mean eugenics daddy.
I don't mean he's a daddy that likes eugenics. I mean he's the
dear.
daddy of eugenics. Yeah.
dear.
Eugenics calls him daddy.
Oh gosh. No,
Sorry.
but look, can you perhaps use that hair chart and tell us which of us four? Can you rate us from most criminal to least criminal?
I'm not going to do that.
Go on, Luke.
I think you probably guess how it goes down. It doesn't explicitly say criminal. It just has numbers from 30 to 1. So you can maybe, if you want to use it as a criminal hair chart, maybe just assume 30 is the most criminal, and 1 is the least criminal. And funnily enough, 1 is my hair color.
Oh.
And actually Eleanor's hair color as well. We're gingers, we're number 1.
Yes.
Down at the 30 end. Down at the
Being
30
ginger
end.
is crime enough, I think.
Wow. Down at the 30 end, Corey, I'd place you around like a 27 or a 28 maybe. Jamp, there's actually not a chart for a grey hat, so I'm not sure where you fall.
He's trying to hide
I'm currently at 34.
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I don't know how this chart works. I can just see it. You can
Well,
maybe put a picture up of it.
I can tell
Jamp.
you this, Luke.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
So, okay, sorry.
It's not really that much of a science.
Has it been
But
means
interestingly,
tested?
there is one end which is ginger, and then it suddenly goes to like dark black, and then it goes all the way to blonde, and then it has these kind of like stuck on at the end bits of like curly black hair. So I don't know, man. I don't know if it's explicitly saying this is a crime detecting chart.
Eleanor, are they still using this today?
The hair chart, I've never heard of it.
Oh, okay, that's good. Fantastic.
That's crazy.
That sounds like they're
That's
not
probably
using
a
it today
good
then.
You would hope not.
They've got it hidden away in the police stations. No, so
Well, Eleanor specifically researches crime and has never heard of the hair chart. So I think that's pretty good evidence to suggest it's not in circulation right now.
no, I don't think it is. I doubt it would be.
Except at UCL.
Anyway, Sir Edward Henry, who worked for the Met, who aren't in good positions right now, he made his own system of fingerprints, detecting fingerprints, in 1896, and the Henry classification system is now the sort of standard for criminal fingerprinting across the world. So we don't have Galton to thank for it entirely. Sir Edward Henry, we've also got to thank for fingerprinting. But also, with forensics crime labs, do you guys know when, perhaps, the first police crime lab was set up?
Ooh.
1800s.
No.
Oh.
No, it was 1910,
Ooh.
which is way later than I
Oh,
thought.
wow.
Yeah, right? So that was in, any guesses for which country it might have been in? You'll get it wrong, I promise you. Think of the
Get it wrong.
Yeah, think of like the least, it's in Western Europe, the least likely country.
I was going to say Hungary. No.
Okay, it's France.
Oh.
France, right? So it was Edmond Locard, who was a professor at the University of Lyon. He hate talking about French stuff. He set up the first police crime lab in France in 1910. And then a chief of the LAPD set up the first American police crime lab in 1924. And the FBI...
Which, according to America, is the first crime lab.
Yeah. This is the thing. I was talking about Sally Ride, the first American woman in space the other day.
Yeah.
And I specifically said the first American woman in space. And presumably an American commented saying, wow, the first woman in space.
Stop.
No, the word American means something
No.
there, my friend.
There are other women.
Brilliant.
No, there's only women from America, right?
That's it.
Right?
Yeah.
Good. So the LAPD set up the first American crime lab in 1924, and the FBI didn't have theirs until 1932, which was 24 years after they formed. So for 24 years, I think they were just treading water, being like, who did a crime? I don't know, man. I guess the guy that was there did the crime. Let's just throw a dart at the board. But that's that's a brief history of forensic science. Do you guys know about DNA profiling? Let's move on to that. What do you guys know about DNA profiling?
God, where is this going?
No, it's going nowhere bad, I think.
Okay.
Eleanor, surely you've come across some DNA things in your researching time.
DNA profiling, I couldn't give you a good definition of it. Is DNA profiling where they can take like a little sample and kind of figure out the traits that a person has?
Kind of, yeah. So this is, I really think DNA profiling is cool as heck, as the kids would say. So you guys probably don't make that face.
I wasn't making any face.
So you guys probably know that we share a lot of our DNA, like more than 99% of our DNA, we more or less share. But there are parts of our DNA that are very, very variable, and you can tell basically who a piece of DNA belongs to if you look at those variable regions. So what you were saying about, Eleanor, about the really small amount, we can take a really, really small amount of DNA and we can amplify it using something called PCR to be loads of DNA. So even from the tiniest little sample of DNA, you can make more copies of that and then have loads to analyze. And essentially, it's very straightforward. There's just really, really variable parts of your DNA that effectively work as a DNA fingerprint. And from the tiniest bit of DNA, you can just make more and be like, okay, whose fingerprint does this match? But with DNA.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Wait, so your fingerprint can be predicted from your DNA?
No. It's the equivalent of a fingerprint.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, your fingerprint can't be predicted from your DNA. Otherwise, twins would have the same fingerprint. Fingerprints come from... This is just knowledge I have. Fingerprints, we don't really know fully. We can't exactly tell how a fingerprint forms, but a lot of it comes from different conditions in the womb. And I think also some of it is genetic. But people don't have the same fingerprints. Very different. But your DNA is it's one of the best things we've got for determining sort of who committed a crime. In that, if your DNA was if we find your DNA at the scene, we know that you were there. And if we find your DNA on a person, for example, you can have an idea of like some kind of contact. If you find blood and you test it and you're like, oh, this is this person's blood, you're sorted. You know, because why were you bleeding at the crime scene, huh? What were you doing bleeding over there?
Explain your way out of it.
Luke! Jesus!
What? They found his blood at the crime scene. They did. They found his blood at the crime scene. And all over the place. And they were still like, no, man.
Didn't know we were going to jump into that so abruptly.
Sorry. I watched a documentary series about O.J. Simpson recently.
But yeah, so as I was saying, you find a suspect's DNA at the crime scene. That doesn't always mean that they... committed the crime. It doesn't always mean that it will lead to conviction. I mean, Eleanor, I'm sure you've done cases where there are people who had their DNA at the crime scene but weren't convicted for the crime.
Oh yeah, you would think that you would be able to tell. Like if someone's DNA is on another person, expecting that the dead person washes themselves, like has a shower every day, then how did suspect DNA get on them without them being kind of involved in their death? You know what I mean?
So true. But
somehow people do get away with it.
It's insane. And this is the issue though, because if someone were to like, God forbid, murder Luke, we wouldn't know who it was because when did he last shower? So much DNA.
I'm covered in it, man. I'm just giving you all alibis. As long as if any of my friends want to kill me, you're all good because it could be any of them.
But there's lots of perfectly fine ways to leave DNA on someone. Because bear in mind, we can take, because we can amplify DNA so much, we can get a DNA sample from the tiniest bit of skin left on someone. And so there's plenty of ways to, leave DNA on someone without it being sort of criminal. Like perhaps a small little kiss on the cheek, leave some DNA there. A friendly pat on the shoulder.
That's it.
DNA on that.
Prison.
Yeah, so DNA doesn't necessarily mean that you committed a crime. And actually, as well, this is the thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is that DNA, it's useless on its own, right? It's like having a fingerprint on its own. If you don't know who it belongs to,
yes,
you can't tell because we don't have a database of every single person's DNA.
To be fair, there is a database of previous violent criminals. They brought in a law in like the 1990s where if you've committed any spectrum of violent crime, even if it's just like a fight in the street after you've been out at the pub or something, like you have to give fingerprints, DNA swabs, things like that, and they're building it gradually, I suppose.
Yeah,
but if a person's never committed a violent crime before, then they can essentially get away with murder if they're leaving DNA at the scene, because there's no way of tracking it back to them. And there's so many cases where someone hasn't committed a violent crime before, so they're not on the database, and then they murder someone, so they've got this DNA, they don't know who it belongs to, and they get away with murder for like 20 years, and then they're caught, you know, having a fight on the street after they've been out at the pub. Then the police take their DNA, and then it comes up on the system that 20 years ago they found that person's DNA on a dead body.
Mad, isn't it?
Oh my goodness.
Have you heard of the Grim Sleeper?
I've heard the name. I've never looked into that.
So the Grim Sleeper, this might be one that I'm going to spoil it if you're going to do it. But the Grim Sleeper case, so it was a murderer from a serial killer from Los Angeles who killed at least 10 people between 1985 and 2007. Left DNA at the scene. No one could figure out who it was. And then they managed to figure out who he was because his son was arrested for having weapons, essentially. So they got the son's DNA, and because like it's familial, you know, they managed to match. They managed to be like, oh look, this DNA is a match for, you know, this person being that person's kid. So the murderer must have been that guy's dad, which is this guy. Wow. So they managed to arrest.
Oh my god!
Yeah, they managed to arrest him like way later because his son got arrested.
It's so sad that solving crimes like that relies on someone else being violent or someone else having such a dangerous crime so that they get their DNA there.
Well, I think, and this, I'm not 100% on this, but I think the US government was trying to get DNA records from, you know, those 23andMe things. I think there was a big thing about that not too long ago.
I've heard the conspiracies.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. I don't want to give my DNA to, not that I would commit a crime. I just don't want people having my DNA. You know,
but they could just get your DNA. Like they could just walk past you in the street if they really wanted.
Yes, they could just. Oh my God, this is another story that I heard about recently, where someone basically, I think a woman like sort of, I think attacked her husband or something, and maybe killed her husband. And there were bite marks and things, and they couldn't tell who it was. They arrested the wrong. I think it went sort of unnoticed for a long time. And then the woman was working as, I think, in sort of criminal law or something. She was working as a lawyer or something. And she ended up getting taken down because they were like, hey, this it might have been her, you know, this old case. So let's take her DNA from a coffee cup that she had and let's test it out. They tested out the DNA that they found and it turned out to be her and they had to, arrest her. People that worked with her or whatever.
That's some TV show stuff right there.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, I've seen the advice before that's like if you're in a situation where violent crime is happening and you can't necessarily get an ID of the person, you should just like scratch so you can get their skin underneath your nails and then they'll be able to be found.
Yeah, and I mean I've seen things like a woman saying that she would pull out her hair and leave it in cabs so that there's like if anything like God forbid anything awful would happen.
Oh my goodness.
They have her DNA in that place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's incredible what you can do with DNA, but obviously we shouldn't put too much. We'll talk about this in a bit, but we shouldn't put too much stake on it because it's not infallible. There are plenty of normal ways for someone's DNA to get wherever because we're just shedding it all the time. We're just leaving it everywhere, you know? So do you guys know about, that's sort of the history of forensic science. It's a little bit about the DNA side of it. Do you guys know any other branches of forensic science off the top of your heads?
So you've got fingerprints, you've got blood, you've got DNA.
I have all of those things. Yeah,
That's all I know. Fibers.
Yeah.
Fibers is a good one.
Yes.
Yeah. So, oh gosh.
And shoe prints.
Yes.
Okay, which one would that fall under? Okay, yes, I think that would be, so you say the sort of blood and fiber, all of that stuff, that would probably fall under criminalistics. So that's what we would usually think of as forensic scientists, criminalists.
Right.
They basically they apply science to sort of collect and identify and compare different bits of evidence, like physical evidence. And they'll analyze body fluids. I think they'll analyze like you say fibers, things like that. They'll do all of those tests to sort of compare physical evidence or to look into physical evidence. But there are so many other types of forensic science, which I found out about literally when I started looking this up. There's forensic anthropology, which is very straightforward. It's just basically looking at skeletons. If you can figure out whether a skeleton is a human or animal one, that's probably a good start.
Very entry level.
Yeah, oh my gosh, this body that we found, is it a person or is it a kitty cat? We just don't know.
Might be a really small person with a tail.
Or a really big cat.
Without a tail.
Without a tail. Where is the tail? That's another crime to solve. No, so if you know what kind of, if you know what kind of like sort of person it is as well from the skeleton, you can sort of determine age, race. You can even, in some cases, apparently you can try and determine like socioeconomic status from evidence from the skeleton. But like obviously that's not 100%. Like there's different things you can infer from different different things on a skeleton.
Like wear and tear on different types of jobs and stuff.
Yeah, presumably. I mean, and if you think about this is what they do in sort of anthropology or sort of when you've got very old skeletons, they can say, oh, this person probably did this and that based on, you know, whatever happened to their skeleton. So they do apply that when they're looking at sort of crimes. There's also forensic engineering, which I think is really cool. So this is one where they'll basically they can look at sort of car crashes and things like that, and they take in sort of witness statements. They look at skid marks on the road. They look at all of these things and they try and determine.
Oh God!
I heard skid marks and I was like,
How did they get there?
You can get some DNA out of some skid marks, can you?
It's very true.
Not on the road though.
You could get DNA from skid marks that are on the road.
You could probably work out what
It'd
type
just
of car
be very
someone was
difficult
driving
to leave skid marks on.
skid marks on the road. Like a dog with worms.
I was going to say dogs that like drag themselves.
oh
God, you'd leave more than skid marks. You'd leave a lot of blood on that gravel.
Oh God!
Oh.
I did not bring it up anyway.
Yeah, to be fair, Eleanor's the one who laughed at skid marks.
Sorry.
I'm just picturing you doing like talking about a case at the word skid marks does come up, and suddenly, like how many takes do you need to do? No, so it's not just traffic reconstruction. There's also if there's, let's say, a bridge that collapsed, you gotta be like, okay, why did this bridge collapse? Was it like where was the structural tension? Was it due to negligence on the part of the sort of the architect, the builders of the bridge? Was it what happened? You know,
that's difficult because you got to kind of go back in time and figure out where the fault was.
Yeah,
in a bridge that's already collapsed.
And that's what all these things are. I mean, that's the same for like a dead person. You got to figure out, okay, what was it that killed this dead guy? You know, you can't ask him. You gotta.
Was it this knife that's stuck in the body?
Wait, so
that's a good place to start.
So working out how a bridge collapsed.
It's never the first place you look, Jack. It's never the first.
Working out how a bridge collapsed. That's part of forensic science.
Well, if a bridge collapses, there's going to be you're going to look in. So remember, forensic science is science applied to
Solving crimes.
Okay. Well, not just like any sort of legal case. If a bridge collapses, someone's probably done a boo boo. You know, so you got to figure out who to see if you want to try them with sort of criminal negligence or anything like that. You know.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on in Grenfell with working out where the fire started and then how it spread and all that.
Yeah. I mean, there is once you're told about this kind of stuff, you're like, oh yeah, of course. Like it clicks into place. It makes so much sense. But it's one of those things that you just don't think about until you sort of look into it. There's also forensic odontology, which is about teeth. Teeth.
Dental records.
Yeah, so dental records, that's one of the big things. Obviously, like if there's, let's for example say a big old plane crash, and you can't tell who was in it. You look at their teeth because teeth, boy, they are tough. And so you compare teeth to dental records from previous dental records.
Yeah.
And there are also bite marks, which is a thing that I was looking into. Bite marks are one of the things that was used to convict Ted Bundy. Some people have said sort of that your bite print is, as a whole, is like kind of unique.
Yeah.
Similar to how a fingerprint is unique. This is more sort of contested. But bite marks are a thing that have been used to convict people in the past.
Could you bite someone to death and then get braces, and that changes your bite print?
Well, it would not change the print of the teeth, though. The individual teeth.
True.
But sure, you could get braces. But if you turn up to the court with braces on and then claim those aren't my teeth,
As you can see, my teeth are very straight.
That's really interesting though, because that suggests like I'd never thought about the fact that like your like when you get an X-ray at the dentist, those get like passed on to law enforcement. That's so interesting.
They can. So they don't get passed on to law enforcement, but I think it's not. I don't think the British government is keeping a big old record of everyone's teeth.
Well, they are.
Well,
They're doing that with fingerprints.
under the sort of police, you know. But yeah, I mean, the thing is that it can be drawn upon in the case of a victim or in the case of like, oh, we suspect this person. So this is the thing that's really worrying. There is a lot of information out there about you that you don't even think about. Like if you get an X-ray at the dentist, they know what your teeth look like.
Yeah.
And that may seem innocuous, right? But if you ever want to...
As long as you don't bite anyone, it's sort of fine. Or die in a plane crash. And if you die in a plane crash, you're not going to care who's looking at your teeth.
I don't know. I have a very specific plan for what happens to my teeth after I die, Luke, and I feel like I'm honestly offended that you...
It's in my will.
That you wouldn't
incinerate my dental
Do not
records.
look at my teeth.
Don't look at them. Put them in a little box and drop them in the ocean, like at the end of Titanic. Very specific wishes. So no, those are just a couple of them. I do have more because I find these. I kept on trying to cut it down, but there are so many interesting ones. Yeah. Forensic entomology. Do you guys know what that is?
Entomology.
Entomology.
I know that word.
Yeah.
No, tell me.
It's bugs.
That's it.
Bugs, yeah. So entomology is the study of bugs. Do you guys have any idea why looking at bugs might be useful when looking at a dead body?
Could you match?
In case they committed it.
I mean, yeah, actually, yeah. I mean,
oh, I know. This is about body decomposition.
Yeah, I mean, but actually both. Yeah. So usually it's like body decomposition is one of the main ones, but also yeah, if a bug kills you, that would be how they'd figure it out.
That bee stung me, officer. Get him. Oi, it's this sting of yours.
Yeah, but then you killed the bee, man. That's like the bee stung you, but you killed that bee because they die when they sting.
Kamikaze bee. It killed itself.
Kamikaze bee. Anyway, no, look, you're right. Body decomposition, because if a body dies, especially outside, insects are going to be there, and there's different insects different kind of types of insects that will be there at different times depending on how old the body is. So. And it'll also be influenced by it, like the temperature, what clothes you're wearing, moisture levels, all of those things. It's really cool. So looking at the bugs that are there can help you understand sort of what went on. And also on top of that, there's been cases where the bugs have eaten the body, and because there's been poison in the body and the bugs have eaten the poison, but the poison is degraded from the body, the only source of the poison would be in the bugs.
Oh.
So you could be like, oh, this person was poisoned because there's poison in the bugs. How else would the poison get in the bugs?
What if the bugs ate poison and then found the body and then ate the body?
Well, it's not likely, is it, though?
Checkmate, forensic entomologists.
How to get away with murder.
Your Honour, I believe this large stash of poison near the body is to blame for the evidence.
Well, that's like leaving your murder. That's like leaving your knife next to it, you know?
And then a fly picking it up and stabbing your victim.
How do you know the bugs did not use the knife? No, and so... I mean, in terms of like looking at the toxins inside of the bugs, that would be more toxicology, but it's kind of a crossover there. Toxicology being looking at the drugs and other things in the body. So, and this is not just for murders. This would be so if you were drunk driving, a toxicology report would tell you if you had alcohol in your system or not.
True.
So anything like that, and so. Forensic entomology is kind of a subset of forensic pathology, which is essentially figuring out how long ago a person died. So that's where that comes in. And then you've got the ones that I think are a bit rubbish, a bit naff. So you've got psychiatry and behavioral science. And these are the ones that you use to sort of predict patterns of certain criminals, build psychological profiles, interview suspects and witnesses, or administer polygraph tests. Lie detector tests.
Oh, like Jeremy Kyle does.
Yeah.
Or did.
Yeah, how do we feel about lie detector tests? Goods or goods?
They're not very accurate, are they?
Yeah, no, I hate lie detector tests. In fact, let's do a little tangent on why I don't like lie detector tests. Because this is the thing. I've realized this. People don't realize that lie detector tests are like
bogus.
They're not. Yeah, they're bogus. Yeah. I was trying to find a nice way to say that. They're rubbish. They're not accurate. They're not reliable. Here's a quote from the American Psychological Association. There is no evidence that any pattern of physiological reactions is unique to deception. An honest person may be nervous when answering truthfully, and a dishonest person may be non-anxious. Also, there are a few good studies that validate the ability of polygraph procedures to detect deception. What that's essentially saying is, polygraph tests don't tell you when you're lying or when you're not lying. They tell you someone's anxious. And being anxious is not the same as lying.
Yeah.
Like, you can reliably deceive polygraph tests.
Yeah.
And there have been studies that have sort of looked into the placebo effect of if you think a polygraph test will work, it's more likely that it's going to work.
Yeah.
So if you were to do it on me and I'm like, polygraph tests won't work. Not necessarily going to...
You could probably trick it.
You can trick a polygraph test because it's just testing, like, it tests your sort of blood pressure, I think your heart rate, like moisture levels on your skin, all of those things. I think they can even test the constriction. I don't remember where I heard this. They can test the constriction of certain sphincters because those might go when you're feeling like you're lying. They've also done things where like you can look at someone's brain, and if it's like certain parts of your brain activate, you could be lying. But again, none of these are like 100%, and you can trick them because you can't actually tell when someone's lying. And also, when you want to test whether a polygraph test is working or not, you can't tell what like objective truth is. So it's very difficult to test whether polygraph tests actually work or not. Like, they're rubbish. Don't use them. In fact, I don't think we use them. They're not really usually admissible as evidence nowadays.
Right.
Not nearly as much as they used to be.
Would they just be used to like scare a confession out of someone?
Yeah, that's
if you use a polygraph test and you're like, it's come back that you're lying. Have you got something to tell us? I did it. Yeah.
People
Would
can
that be it?
Yeah, people can get.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you do a polygraph test, like if I was to give one to Luke right now, and say, be like, Luke, are you listening to me? And
what if I'm anxious all the time?
Yeah,
Corey?
you literally would be. But like, I could goad him into confessing because he's like, oh well, I've got a polygraph test, and he gets anxious and confesses anyway. It's just. It's rubbish.
Like torture.
Yeah.
Like when you torture someone and they just start making up facts that they think you want to hear.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's a little less bad than torture, but yeah.
Not any less accurate, though.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's awful. I, by the way, read one somewhere that apparently isolation is one of the most reliable forms of torture. Just leaving someone in a room, in a dark room by themselves. It'd be like, hey, yeah, I'll tell you whatever you want. Just let me speak to you, please. Oh my God. Yeah, which is why isolation as a punishment in prison, which is still used.
Yeah.
Bad.
Yeah.
Very bad. So I've got another quote from Dr. Leonard Sachs and Gershon Ben Shahar. This is from 1999 paper. It may, in fact, be impossible to conduct a proper validity study. Basically, what they're saying is that it's very difficult to verify whether a polygraph test is valid or not because it's difficult to tell. You have to accept that someone is telling the truth or lying.
Yeah.
Difficult stuff. And they're used for different things. They're used for like, they can be used for people trying to get jobs. They can give you a polygraph test. It's just rubbish.
Weird.
Stop using them. Don't believe them. I was watching a judge show, like a US, like sort of like Judge Judy type thing.
Yeah.
And they just bring on the lie detector test. And I'm like, why? Why would you do that?
So when they do this on Jeremy Kyle, they don't do it on Jeremy Kyle anymore because it's been cancelled. But when they do it on Jeremy Kyle, and we as the audience, we do just, I mean, they sometimes say the results were inconclusive, but if they say they were correct, we as the audience are like, oh, well, categorically, this person's lying then.
Yeah.
And then that affects their life. I wonder if there are any examples of where they have been lie detected on Jeremy Kyle, and it's come back categorically true, and it turns out it's not true, and everyone's just gone home being like, yeah, that's true because the lie detector says it is.
Yeah.
Probably happened.
Or do they only use it if they also know from other sources?
If they know it from other sources, then they won't do it. They
it's
wouldn't.
Theatre, Corey.
They don't care. Look, Jeremy Kyle show doesn't care about truth. The Jeremy Kyle show doesn't care about making people better or resolving relationships. The Jeremy Kyle show cares about laughing at poor people. That is it, man. It's like British classism to a T.
Yeah.
Oh, but if we're talking about polygraph tests and why they're rubbish and you shouldn't trust them, there was also another, when I was watching this judge show in the US, there was also this other kind of thing that they used, which I hated, which was handwriting analysis. Bollocks.
Stop.
Absolute bollocks.
I've seen this in Netflix shows where like it's always in a high school and some kids, they've been suspected of doing something and they get every kid in the class to go on the whiteboard and, do their handwriting on the board, and then the police are stood in the corner like, it's that kid.
Well, this is the thing. So like you can, if you're matching handwriting, sure, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, okay, fine. But with the Zodiac killer case, for example, one person was like, that doesn't match. And another person was like, but it does match, I think. But also I don't want to say that because the other person said it didn't match. So
Wow.
when it comes to that, rubbish. The other one that winds me up is when the handwriting analysis people are like, from Luke's big loopy L's, I can tell that actually he has a deep, dark secret that he doesn't want to tell anyone.
My loopy L's, man, giving it away.
By the way that Eleanor dots her I's, I can tell that actually she hates kittens. Yes, it's all there in the handwriting.
All in the eyes.
It's literally.
That's really interesting because I definitely thought handwriting analysis was correct. And that surprises me so much because you use them for contracts. And like the Chinese were doing it with fingerprints thousands of years ago. Why are we not doing it with fingerprints?
Oh, so
if handwriting analysis sucks.
Okay, so signing a contract, a signature is a little like you can forge a signature, right? And like you can tell if someone's forged a signature. Like the thing is that my signature is never the same. Like
Yes.
Realistically,
Yeah.
my signature varies between multiple different things. It's like the same roughly squiggle, but it's not like
Yes.
spot on. I think the thing is that you could maybe tell if the same person has written something, but it's probably less likely that it's going to be through how specifically they've written it, and probably going to be more through chemical analysis and determining like, okay, what kind of pen was used to write this? When was it written? So did they start writing and then stop for a bit and then start writing again? How old is this piece of paper? Is it like 1 week old, 2 weeks, a year old? All of that sort of stuff. That's the kind of document analysis that is useful and reliable. But when it comes to saying that this person has X personality because of Y, absolute rubbish. And
It's just like astrology, isn't it?
it is honestly like, I think astrology is probably better, right? I will go out on a limb and say astrology is probably better because at least that's consistent and bullshit,
Yeah.
you know?
And at least they're just making like general statements, just like
Oh,
that can apply to
feel
anyone.
many people being sore in their solar plexus right now. Sorry.
Like, okay, astrology could be real, right?
Right.
I can't be bothered looking into it, and it doesn't seem to be on the face of it. Someone else look into it and tell me. But thus far, seems that it's not. Right? I'm going to operate as though it's not until someone gives me evidence that it is.
I'm looking forward to the SCI GUYS episode about astrology that I've requested.
It will happen.
Have you really? Oh man!
I have requested it, yes. I want you to do it. You did Wicca. I want to do astrology.
Let's do astrology. That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys can probably tell where this episode is going. It's coming to a close soon, but I want to tell you guys, like, you've seen that I've got some problems with some aspects of forensic science. So I kind of want to finish this off by talking more about that, like the limitations of forensic science. Because, I mean, I don't know, Luke and Jamp, how much you guys know about how good forensic science is.
Nothing. I thought it was
Zilch.
perfect, to be honest. I thought it was an absolute perfect art.
But Eleanor, I assume you've probably got some idea of like the reliability of forensic evidence, you know?
Yeah.
And it's not always there. And the issue is, I think that the public seems to think one of the main issues here, I think, is that the public seems to think that it is foolproof. So if you've got someone that comes up and says, I'm a scientist, science says Jap did the bad thing. The jury's going to
jam?
The jury's going to be like, "Oh boy, he did the bad
Science said
thing."
so.
Oh, but I didn't do it.
Science says so. And that's what happened to Donald Gates. I don't know if you guys have heard of this story. So in 2009, Donald Gates was released from prison in Arizona. And he was in prison for 28 years for a crime that he didn't commit.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and the reason that he was convicted for the crime was because of hair. microscopic hair analysis. Have you guys heard of microscopic hair analysis before at all? Yeah?
I can imagine it. Is it looking at hair under a microscope?
Microscope and hair.
Yeah.
An analysis.
That is hair.
My microscope confirms it.
So the killer could not have been a bald man.
Bald man, unless he's really hairy, man.
That narrows it. It's just like Guess Who. It's just getting more and more specific.
I think, you know, with the initial Guess Who, if you wanted to, if you could literally, if you got a certain character, you could just ask, are they black? And you'd instantly, yeah, no, honestly,
Wait, was there only like one black person?
I
on
think
the Guess
genuinely
Who?
for like the first Guess Who, there was like one black person, or there was one person with like some trait. It was not a good game. No, but microscopic hair analysis. So essentially, what they did was they look at hair under a microscope and they compare it to other hair. So let's say you find a hair at the crime scene, right?
Yeah.
I find, for example, a long ginger hair at the crime scene, and I compare it to another long ginger hair, and I'm like, these hairs look pretty darn similar under the microscope. Boy, they must be from the same head. They weren't from the same head. So this guy, the thing is, this Donald Gates, this guy went to prison, like I said, for 28 years. And then the reason, like when he was on trial for it, which was in 1982, an FBI analyst said that the hairs that were found on the body of the victim and Donald Gates' hairs were consistent. And he said that the probability that it came from someone else was 1 in 10,000.
1 in 10,000.
Yeah, which had no basis.
And it did come from someone else.
It did come from it did come from someone else. The 1 in 10,000 number, there's no basis for that. There was no data behind it. He just said it.
Oh my God.
And also, bear in mind, with the number of people on this planet, 1 in 10,000.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah,
So
that's.
much possibility.
Yeah, there's many more than 10,000. Anyway, and Donald Gates isn't the only one. But this is the issue. You have someone who is a scientist say, science says X. People in the jury are gonna believe that. It's and even there's so much bias that can come into it. So let's start off with DNA. The DNA that we thought was great. You know, it worked real good. It was it's a great indicator of who committed a crime and who didn't. But I was reading this article, and this sort of BBC reporter called Linda Geddes. Gosh, I should have figured out how to read that name beforehand. Linda was working with New Scientist in 2010, and she teamed up with people from UCL and Boise State University. God, there's so many words here.
Boise.
Boise.
Sounds like a pop band.
Yeah, the thing is, I know Boise, and I don't know how I know Boise. I assume, unless I'm like dead wrong. Anyway, so she teamed up with someone from UCL and someone from Boise, and to try and figure out if sort of DNA evidence was as objective as we think. So they took evidence from an actual case, awful one. I won't tell you what it was, but they presented it to 17 different people who were all experienced analysts, all working with DNA, and working within the same lab, right? So they gave it to these 17 people, all
Right.
working in the same place, all professionals. And in the original case, 2 analysts from Georgia said that the person who was ultimately convicted for the crime could not be excluded from the crime scene sample based on his DNA. What they were basically saying there was that based on the DNA that they found at the crime scene, you couldn't say that he didn't do it.
Right.
Right? But when they gave the evidence to the 17 analysts that they found, they reached totally. It was totally different for them. They said that just one of them agreed that the guy who was tried for it couldn't be excluded. 4 said that the evidence was inconclusive, and 12 said that he could be excluded.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not as objective as you think. You know, it depends on who you like. The fact that they chose 2 people initially that were like, oh yeah, he can't be excluded, and this man got sent to jail for it, and then they got 17 people sometime later, and the results were very different. Not based on any difference in sort of evidence, based
Yeah.
on difference in understanding that evidence. You know what I mean?
Interpreting it, kind of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, when we do science, right? We if we do an experiment, we do it lots of times, but also before we can say this thing is factual, we have lots of different people do it. We want to have reliability, you know? So if the experiment can't be reproduced elsewhere, then we usually sort of write it off as, oh, there must have been some kind of mistake. But we don't really do that for forensics, at least not at the scale that we should. 2 people saying, oh yeah, that's not quite as reliable as 17 people, but we obviously don't have the money to be paying 17 different people to analyze it. And that's not the only issue. There's also bias. So a forensic scientist is not being unbiased. They're not making a decision based on nothing. Sorry, not a decision based on nothing. They're not making a decision based solely on the facts that are presented to them, because they also work with the police and they also work with investigators who will tell them extra little details that will like involve bias in their line of work.
Yeah.
So if they know about a suspect's race, for example, ethnicity, if they know about whether they've got a criminal record or not, if an eyewitness placed them at the scene, in their head they're like, oh, this person probably did it. Let's find evidence to prove that they did it. So if something was borderline inconclusive, they could be like, oh, but they did it though. And it's not necessarily that they're doing this on purpose. There's unconscious bias, and one bit of bias can lead to more bias, which causes like a bias cascade. So even the tiniest amount of bias introduced into this system can just cause wildly varying results.
Yeah.
And this is the issue as well, in that a lot of people that work in forensics, they just ignore this. They're like, well, I'm doing my job right, and if I've got this evidence that proves this case, and then the jury like agrees with my evidence or like uses that to try them as guilty or whatever, then I've done my job right, sort of thing. But it's not necessarily the case, you know. It's difficult. It's really difficult to acknowledge bias anyway. But when you're literally dealing with life and death of other people, it's like you got to be sure of what you're saying,
whether they're going to be behind bars for the next decades or whatever.
Exactly.
I guess the problem is that they're not being employed by the person who's defending themselves. And so they don't necessarily have any outright incentive to like play devil's advocate to that data, you know?
Well, it's even worse
because they're being employed by the police. If the police have arrested and put someone through trial who it turns out didn't do it, that's embarrassing. It's not, and you know, in an ideal world, that's not a problem. Embarrassment is fine. That trust the process, but in practice, the defendants should be able to do their own data. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, or they should
have their own forensic scientists.
Or forensic science should be separated from the police entirely.
Yeah,
should be removed. Should be its own thing. I mean, how many I don't know, Eleanor, have you seen many cases where people have been tried for something and convicted, and then it turns out that they didn't do it and someone else did it?
Yeah, quite a lot. Like, and there's so many where maybe they didn't quite get convicted yet, but they got so far based on this like one piece of evidence that ended up falling through. And then there's actually nothing else to convict them on, but they'd been putting so much into this one piece of DNA that actually obviously wasn't strong enough.
Yeah, like circumstantial evidence. The thing is that like the way that people work is that there's this thing called the sunk cost fallacy. So once you put in a certain amount of time for something, you're then like, oh, well, I've put in all this time on it, or I've put in all this effort on it, and if I just give up, then all of that time has been wasted. It's what makes gamblers gamble, you know? Yeah. I've put in 10 pounds on this machine already. It'd be a waste of a tenner to not go more. Oh, I've put in 100. Oh God, I've put in 5,000. I need a big win.
Keep going.
You know,
I
need to go until I win. And it would be smarter just to quit like before you lose more. But there's always that little bit of, well, we could win it. So if there's someone that's say you think is you suspect them of a crime, and you put a lot into them being the actual culprit, you're gonna kind of want to probably convict them and find evidence to prove yourself right. And it basically, people get stuck on ideas. Like people could be like, this guy definitely did it. That person definitely did it. And even if there's not a huge amount of evidence, they'll get themselves convinced. And then if you've got a little bit of science to back you up, that's like suddenly. Sorry, I thought that Luke was whispering to Eleanor there.
Oh, because you're side by side on the screen.
Okay, viewers, you can't see this. Listeners, you can't see this. We've got Eleanor and Luke up on a call right now. They're standing right next to each other on the screen, and Luke just leaned over.
Hey.
Which side you on?
Hey.
That's so good.
Fantastic. No, so if you've got a little bit of science to back you up, it feels like you're right. And you can see this as well. If you look at people that believe in, I don't know, let's pull this. What's a conspiracy that's a big conspiracy right now? QAnon.
Oh, got that big. Okay.
Wow. Okay, cool. Yeah. So if Q says something.
It's just come out this week with a theory that Joe Biden is actually not the president. Donald Trump is the president, and Joe Biden is acting on a green screen to pretend to give press conferences.
Interesting.
Why would they not just have him do press conference? Okay. What? No. We're not getting into that. No. Okay. No, I don't want to think about that. No, let's move away. Let's move away. Why don't we talk about vaccines?
9/11.
No, vaccines. No. Oh my God, Luke.
Flat Earth.
Jeez Louise. Yeah, vaccines are flat Earth. So with flat Earth, if you
Do you want to do that again?
Nope.
So that we don't go through all the different conspiracy theories first.
No.
Okay.
If you've got, say, flat Earth, if there's a tiny little bit of scientific evidence that's like that hints towards the Earth not being fully round, for example, or you think it hints towards that. For example, like if the Earth was round, something about the horizon not being flat, right?
Right.
Something like that. And yeah, you have that tiny little bit of what you think is scientific evidence, and you say, oh, this proves my theory then. Or with vaccines, where but there is formaldehyde in vaccines, therefore it's bad for you.
Yeah.
Or autism rates have gone up as vaccination rates have gone up, therefore vaccines cause autism. All of that stuff. None of these things are true. But with a certain amount of science to back it up, people can really, really latch onto it.
Yeah.
Because it's not just them having an idea. It's them having an idea and this concept of science backing it up. And the same thing will happen with forensics, like forensic science, where juries can really be swayed by a forensic scientist coming in and saying, this person did it. But the forensic scientist themselves could be swayed by whatever evidence. It's very difficult to get that across to a jury that what this person says is not necessarily true. Getting across the reliability of what they're talking about is really difficult because most people have no idea how reliable different techniques are. You know?
And that's one of the reasons we don't have the death penalty.
Yes.
Because you might sentence people to death who aren't actually the person who did it.
And instead, we
That's
just
not very nice.
send them to prison for decades.
Yeah.
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 I mean, it's not necessarily. I think it's better.
Oh, it's definitely preferable. Sure. Yeah.
We give them millions of pounds when they get out. I think. Not that makes up for it, but
This guy that I was mentioning earlier, Donald Gates, got $75 and a bus ticket to Ohio. 28 years.
Did he live in Ohio, or was that just a random little
I
extra?
think that's where he was from.
And a holiday to Ohio.
Who doesn't want a holiday to Ohio? All of the things you can see in Ohio, like Ohio.
Neighboring
Like
states.
the airport.
I'm sure there's at least one airport. Yep, you can look at that. There's probably some kind of land there. Have a look at that.
You'd think so, otherwise it wouldn't be a place.
Yes.
The ocean is a place, silly.
Bus ticket to a void.
Okay, I mean, I think that's pretty much the end of the show, is it not?
It would seem so.
Got anything you guys
There we
want to
go.
add? It's fine if not, because we've got a quickfire quiz coming up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so for all of our new listeners and for our new guest, the quickfire quiz is very, very simple, very straightforward. There are only a few rules. I will ask you all a question. It's one question between the three of you. I need to finish asking the question before you can answer. The first person to buzz in with the correct answer wins. What do they win, Jamp?
Absolutely nothing.
Goddamn right. So, Luke, what is your buzzer?
Bonk.
Jamp.
Wow, good. That's a standard one. I like that.
Oh wait, no, I should have done a forensic science based.
Yeah.
Bonk is
Sorry.
forensic science based. You bonk someone on the head.
Okay. Yeah.
So
It's a serial killer noise.
how do you know what serial killers make so noise
Yeah,
they
Jamp.
make, Jamp? Huh? You got something to tell us?
My buzzer is
That's a good buzzer.
dusting. I'm gonna go dusting for
That's
prints.
the sound of a detective trying to work out who did it.
That's a really long buzzer. I'm gonna go with Dusting for Prince.
You guys need to give me a chance.
I don't know if you're gonna.
Okay.
Very
Dusting
good.
for Prince. Thank you.
Eleanor, you don't need to be weird. What is your buzzer?
Ah!
Oh, wow. So we've got a murder victim,
That's the other end of the
a
serial killer.
detective, and a murderer. This is perfect. Wow, we should put on a play.
Who done it?
Well, we know who done it.
It was
Luke done
Luke,
it.
yeah.
The guy going,
I'm sure that's going to be great for all of our listeners.
plot twist. I
on
was
this.
actually just doing a pig impression and Jam's the murderer.
So, the quickfire quiz question. You guys were all ready with your buzzers. Bear in mind, I need to finish asking the question before you can buzz in to answer. The question is, what is another name for a lie detector test? All parts of the murder came together at once.
I'm solving the murder as it happens.
Eleanor, I'll give that one to you.
Yes, polygraph test.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
That is
that's
correct.
it.
Well done. Fantastic. Okay.
I was going to call it the Jeremy Kyle method. But
That's just attacking poor people. Now, congratulations, Eleanor. You're the winner of your first quickfire quiz. Your prize is nothing except for the
Thank
feeling
you
of winning.
so much.
a hit of dopamine.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us, by the way, Eleanor. It's been fantastic.
Thank you so much for
for
coming
having
on.
me.
Where can people find you? What do you do?
I make true crime videos on youtube.com, Eleanor Neale.
Fantastic. Before we go, we would like to thank all of our patrons with a very special thanks to executive producers Ashley Mulla and Anon Ime. Thank you for watching. You can find the full references for this episode in the description. Subscribe for new episodes every Sunday, and why not leave us a nice wee comment? You can find me at Not Corey everywhere,
You can find me at Jamkin everywhere.
You can find me at Luke Cutforth everywhere.
and you can find Eleanor, I don't know, probably in a bush somewhere. No!
Eleanor Neale. What?
Sorry, where did that come from?
It's in a bush.